Welcome everyone to this exciting explainer. Today we're looking at something truly special. We are taking a globally beloved snack, the classic Latin American churro, and watching it get totally transformed through the lens of large-scale, rustic village cooking. If you love food, cross-cultural pollination, and just massive cooking setups, you're going to be absolutely fascinated by how this all comes together. We're going to break down exactly how this huge culinary undertaking unfolds, step by energetic step. Okay, let's dive into this. Every great cooking adventure starts with a spark of inspiration, right? Well, the catalyst for this entire massive cookout was actually just a really fond memory. The grandfather of the village cooking team remembered a trip to America where they tried churros for the very first time. He recalled just how super they tasted. It was that lingering sweet memory of a foreign street food that inspired the team to bring the recipe back home and attempt to recreate it on an absolutely massive scale in their village. To get us to that delicious finish line, here's our roadmap for today. Phase 1, the cooking begins. Phase 2, the dough and egg mix. Phase 3, the chocolate sauce. Phase 4, the frying method. And finally, Phase 5, the tasting experience. Let's move right into it with Phase 1. The cooking begins. Now, we aren't just talking about a small pan on a kitchen stove here. We are dealing with roaring fires, massive woks, and a highly enthusiastic team ready to tackle this recipe. The foundation of a great churro starts with a rolling boil, so the team heats a massive amount of cold water right over an open flame. To this, they add hearty handfuls of rock salt, making sure it dissolves completely. Then comes the rich part, dropping in literal blocks of butter. Just imagine the sensory experience, the heat of the fire, the sound of the water turning into a vigorous boil, and that rich, creamy aroma of huge chunks of butter melting down into the base liquid. It requires serious raw energy to handle cooking vessels of this size.
Moving right along to Phase 2, the dough and egg mix.
Once that liquid base is perfectly boiling and rich with melted butter, this is where the chemistry of the churro actually happens. Now, what's really interesting about this step is the sheer physical effort it takes. They have to dump massive amounts of flour into the boiling liquid and stir continuously just to form a thick paste. But the real challenge? The eggs. They have to break dozens of eggs and mix them into this steaming hot dough. If they're too slow, the eggs will literally scramble in the hot mix. The team has to mix vigorously, shouting out instructions, using massive ladles, and just putting their entire upper body strength into making sure those wet and dry ingredients blend perfectly without separating.
Next up, Phase 3, sweet chocolate sauce.
You simply cannot have churros without something to dip them in, right? The simplicity and richness of these ingredients is just fantastic. To create that velvety dipping sauce, they combine fresh, local cow's milk with rich cocoa powder, they add generous amounts of sugar and butter for sweetness and gloss, and finally, cornstarch to thicken the whole thing up over the fire. It's this amazing blend of a global flavor profile, the classic chocolate sauce, made with incredibly fresh, rustic, local village ingredients. Okay. This brings us to Phase 4, the frying method. All right, let's bring the energy up because we are entering the most action-packed, chaotic, and downright fun phase of the explainer. And this brilliantly illustrates the magic of this culinary crossover. Instead of using standard neutral frying oils that you might see in a typical Western kitchen, the team uses pure cold-pressed sesame oil. This is a staple in traditional Tamil cooking. Swapping out a standard oil for this pure sesame oil gives the churros a distinctly regional, nutty flavor profile that you simply won't find anywhere else in the world. It's a real game changer. The frying process isn't just a technical step either. It's an event filled with hilarious banter. As they load the thick dough into a specialized press and squeeze it out into the sizzling hot sesame oil, one of the cooks jokingly asks, "Shall we drop one in water snake size?" They're laughing, coordinating closely, with one person squeezing the heavy machine and another rapidly snipping the dough with scissors so perfectly sized churros drop straight into the bubbling oil. It is just a fantastic display of teamwork and joy. Which leads us to the final stage, Phase 5, the delicious tasting experience. Finally, after all the boiling, mixing, pressing, and frying, we arrive at the absolute best part. But before they can eat, there's one last step. And the team's enthusiasm here is highly infectious. As they take the massive pile of golden fried churros and toss them into an equally massive mountain of sugar, they gleefully toss the sugar high into the air. One of them actually shouts, "Let the camera itself get sweet." They're having so much fun with this process that they're joking about giving the camera lens a sugar rush. Let's break down this final coating process. It's like a three-part harmony of flavor.
First, they're tossed in that abundant white sugar. Second, they're thoroughly mixed with fragrant cinnamon powder, which sticks perfectly to the warm, oil-kissed ridges of the dough. And finally, the ultimate payoff, dipping those sweet, spiced churros directly into the thick, warm, freshly prepared chocolate sauce we saw them make earlier.
So the crucial point here is the contrast in that final bite. The ultimate sensory experience of a perfect churro is all about texture. The grandfather and the entire village team marvel at how the outside is perfectly crispy and crunchy from that hot sesame oil fry, while the inside remains unbelievably soft and fluffy. When you combine that hot, crispy, soft texture with the cinnamon sugar and rich chocolate, it is literally an absolute masterpiece of cross-cultural cooking.
Which brings us to the end of today's explainer and leaves us with one final, very important question. Are you ready to recreate this global street food in your own kitchen? Now, you might not have a massive wok or a team to help you squeeze water snake-sized dough into cold-pressed sesame oil, but the spirit, the technique, and the pure joy of this recipe are universal. Grab some butter, flour, sugar, and cinnamon, and bring a little bit of that village cooking energy into your own home. Thanks so much for joining me today, and stay curious.